Welcome to Movies Are Life. I'm your host, Nathan Chandler, and today we're taking a stroll down the romantic aisle with the number 37 film on the 50 Best Rom-Coms list, The Wedding Planner. Brace yourselves, returning guest and co-host of the podcast, Second Best Picture, Kyle Radford, will be joining me to talk through the depths of cringe and questionable plot twists that happen in this early 2000s favorite. Before we jump into that conversation with Kyle, Whitney is here with me. How are you doing, Whitney?
I'm good.
Good. We're coming off a successful Thanksgiving break, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, it was great. Saw lots of family. I had a good time.
So I wanted to make sure everybody listens to the end of the podcast because we're just going to quickly touch on some of the films that we got to watch over the holiday, which included Trolls, The Wiggles, Genies.
The Wiggles, like documentary, not just The Wiggles.
and Dane Cook.
You missed Genie. You said it, but I talked over you.
I said Genies.
I know, but I talked over you.
Okay, you did. Well, before we jump into this conversation with Kyle, I do have to ask you, so this was my first time to watch The Wedding Planner, but I know for a fact that you own this on DVD. We had a copy of it on our shelf, or you did when we met. So why did you own this movie?
Well, if you would have asked me a few weeks ago why I owned it, it's because I really liked it, and it was a great romantic comedy, and I enjoyed the storyline, but rewatching it, it's not very good.
Yeah, you did.
But... no, it's terrible. But I enjoyed it again because, I mean, Matthew McConaughey smiles and you just like go, okay, I'll do whatever you say. And he's just like got that magnetic like personality. And I never really cared if she was with Massimo because I always felt sorry for Massimo. But anyway, I don't know why I liked it after rewatching it. But I did like it. It was 2001 would have been right during college for me, and so roommates and I would see it and watch it, and we probably just rewatched it in our house. And I just would have it on like a Saturday while we did housework or laundry, and I just liked romantic comedies, so yeah. I guess that's why.
Yeah. So one thing that me and Kyle discussed, and something I didn't know about this movie, was the whole thing about brown M&Ms. I want you to hear this clip, and then I want you to give us your take on that.
Okay.
The only eating the brown M&Ms is insane. Wouldn't you agree?
Act of a madman. Act of complete insanity. I'd never heard of that either. Makes no sense. It's like, we need something cute. I don't know, brown M&Ms.
Yeah, it's terrible. They always do that with like Skittles, and Skittles make sense because Skittles taste different. But I think you could start a controversy because I really do feel like people will think that the M&Ms taste different, but I don't think they do. No. I think all M&Ms taste the same, but Skittles do taste different.
They do.
So, I guess there's purity to brown M&Ms. At least he didn't only like the green ones or something. That would definitely make him a serial killer or like a porn star.
A porn star.
Green, I don't know. That's what they always say about the green one. Read it. Read about it.
What?
Read about it.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
What does that have to do?
I don't know. Check it out.
Okay.
I'm not saying it on here. Okay. It's all you're getting out of me.
Okay. Well, let's go into the conversation with Kyle, and we'll circle back around on this towards the end of the podcast.
Okay.
While Mary was planning everyone else's love life, she didn't have one of her own.
Mary, you haven't been on a date in 2 years.
You can't avoid love forever.
You know those who can't do teach? Those who can't wed, plan.
So fate stepped in.
Are you okay?
You saved my shoe and my life.
I'm welcoming in one of my best friends and one half of the amazing podcast, Second Best Picture, Kyle Radford. How are you doing, Kyle?
Hey, buddy, I'm doing good. How are you, Nate?
I'm doing great.
Thanks for having me, man.
Yeah, I know it's been a little while, but before we jump into this movie, tell the listeners a little bit about your podcast.
Yeah, me and my buddy Brandon McMinn, we have a podcast called Second Best Picture where we take all of the Oscar nominees for a year, and we kind of spend some time each episode talking about an Oscar nominee for a given year, and then we decide what the Academy got right, what they got wrong, and what movies they missed altogether. So we kind of re-adjudicate the Oscars for every year. Right now, we're in the middle of 2006 movies released in 2006. So it's nice to talk about a movie that I don't think was nominated for any Oscars. We get a little heavy on our show sometimes. So excited to not be so heavy today.
Yeah. And I say, I promise I'm not saying this because you're my good friend and I've gotten to know Brandon as well, but it's a legit good podcast. If I did not know you two, I would still really enjoy it. So you both love movies. You both banter well together. You've known each other for a long time. So that really comes through on the podcast. So I really, if you love movies, it's a great listen. Even if you haven't seen the films, I think because I would say, and maybe you could disagree or agree with me, because they have been nominated for Oscars. There's at least there's a familiarity there, even if you haven't seen the movie.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I definitely hadn't seen all the movies going into them, and it's expanded my range of films that I've seen. And there's a few that I had kind of heard of, but had no idea what they were even about. That I've really enjoyed because of this process. So yeah, Second Best Picture. Check us out. We're wherever you can get podcasts. Thanks, Nate. And I love your podcast. This is so much fun. I'm so jealous of all the movies you get to talk about as I'm sitting there talking about Babel and things like that.
well, you say that, and we're about to talk about this movie.
No, I'm not happy with you this week. I am not happy with you this week.
Well, yes. So this is your third time on, and I feel I'm kind of worried a little bit about maybe you're not going to come back on because we covered the Batman. You aren't a big fan of that. We covered Dear Evan Hansen, which was its own sort of travesty. And so anyway, then we have this film. And so I hope this is not like a third strike, you're out.
Yeah,
situation.
you're on thin ice. Now, you did let me pick, and I kind of picked this one wanting something that was just fluff, but fluff is generous for whatever this is. This is like those carnival. If fluff is what your kids' stuffed animals are filled with, this is like carnival prizes that are filled with asbestos and despair.
Well, I kind of laugh because for whatever reason, I hadn't seen this movie before, and I know when I met Whitney, it's like one she had as a DVD, like she had it. And I know a lot of people had seen this movie, but I hadn't seen it before. And so when I originally had this list of 50, I reached out to all my friends to basically claim one. And there was probably like a little over 40 were claimed, but there was this kind of group of movies that still, I've gotten some people attached to and stuff, but The Wedding Planner was always kind of floating out there. And then like, after seeing this, I understand why.
Yeah. I think I'll be on a future podcast because this is, now you had me pick one and this was not on my radar as one to pick. So I appreciate you giving me another bite at the apple. Yeah. I told my wife that we were doing this and she's like, oh, I loved that movie when I was in high school. So there is an audience for this. It's not me.
Right. I just was a little like Whitney and I, we've gone halfway through this list of the 50 best rom-coms, and even kind of analyzing that, the movie that I had at my lowest, I still kind of enjoyed it. And this is probably the first movie. I'm going ahead and spoiling my kind of overall take of this movie. This was one where I was definitely like, okay, so we like Working Girl I actually did it with your co-host, Brandon. And so that was a movie that I didn't necessarily like super love, but I totally kind of understood why people would like it so much. This one was The Wedding Planner was kind of like, I don't think it has any business being on this list at all.
Let me talk about that for a second, because I was like, this has to be number 50. Like, it has to be. If there weren't 50 better movies than this. And then I look and it's number 37. Are you kidding me? Below it are Knocked Up, 10 Things I Hate About You, 500 Days of Summer. Okay, not on the list. Some Like It Hot, Sabrina, LA Story, Bridesmaids, As Good as It Gets, but The Wedding Planner is on this list. I got to talk to Bill Simmons. This is ridiculous.
I'll have to reread the initial article on it because someone had to have, maybe it was someone like Kayla who just like there was a nostalgic like connection to it or something that they just
I
really
mean, it was a
enjoyed
hit.
it. It was. And so if people haven't seen this movie, I was kind of reanalyzing things, and I usually pull kind of a brief like description of the movie, like just off the internet or whatever. But I kind of wanted to have a little bit fun, and I believe I might be wrong, but you two have on your podcast utilized Chat GPT a little bit, right, into your podcast.
We've done on some of our social media. We put some Chat GPT in there for sure.
Yeah. So anyway, I thought it would just be fun, and I said, write a snarky description of this movie. So here it is. Here it goes. In this 2001 film directed by Adam Shankman, Jennifer Lopez stars as a wedding-obsessed protagonist who can coordinate a ceremony with military precision, but can't seem to schedule a date for herself. Matthew McConaughey plays the groom-to-be, who's about as interesting as a beige paint swatch. Get ready for a rom-com so formulaic, you'll be checking your watch to see if it's time for the credits to roll before the first kiss even happens. Spoiler alert, love conquers all, but originality takes a back seat. So I thought that was a pretty good description of this movie.
I mean, I couldn't have said it better myself. This movie, I mean, this belongs on the Hallmark Channel, right? Like, this should be starring Dean Cain and Candace Cameron and Melissa Joan Hart. Like, this would not get a major release these days. They'd set this thing at Christmas and call it a Christmas wedding, and that would be the end of it.
Right.
It's just it's so formulaic. It's so one note and surface level. It's like someone's description of what a basic rom-com is.
Yes. Exactly.
I a little bit. So I'd never seen it, and I was watching it on a plane. And famously, I do not sleep on planes. And by famously, no one knows that except for a few people. But I don't sleep on planes. I hardly sleep in beds, so I don't sleep on planes. And I was watching this on a plane last week, and I was falling asleep, and I had to stop it. I had to stop it like 45 minutes in because I couldn't keep my eyes open. I mean, I don't know if that had more to do with the movie or the couple beers I had with lunch and the Denver airport, but I had to watch this thing in 2 sittings. And I'm a little fuzzy what happened in the first half.
Well, I kind of laugh. I'm laughing at you or saying that because I was even kind of getting ready for this. And I was looking at the rankings and like how I would rank everything. And there were certain elements I really had to kind of refresh my mind on because I try really hard to basically, anytime I watch a movie, to put my phone up, kind of, remove distractions. But it was almost like my hand couldn't help itself. It kept like kind of grabbing my phone to look at something. And so, yeah, it was just something that was really hard for me to pay attention to. And I don't think it's so much this movie is like, I mean, I think it's bad, but it doesn't have a heart to it because I don't think the performances are necessarily bad. Would you agree with that? Like the actor, like most of the people that are involved?
Yeah, I would mostly agree with that. I think Jennifer Lopez is doing a good job. I don't know if I'd say McConaughey's giving a good performance. As such a charismatic actor, he is so flat in this. He's so like bemused the whole time. This is his first big romantic comedy, I guess. Like after this, he kind of gets in that. He was making interesting choices before this movie, like he was doing Amistad and A Time to Kill and things like that. And this is his first. I'm gonna be a pretty boy in a romantic comedy, and then you get the half a decade or decade of slog of Fool's Gold and Failure to Launch and things like that. So, which I'm sure some people enjoy. But I feel like the reason you hire McConaughey, he's not doing that here. And maybe he hadn't really become that guy yet. Yeah. But I don't find him interesting. And they have no chemistry at all. Yeah. Which is, but everyone else is fine. I mean, yeah, you got, I feel like the script wasn't there, and so they're like, "We'll hire some funny people. We'll throw a Fred Willard scene in there. We'll get Kathy Najimy as the boss, and they'll spice it up. They'll make it funny." And they're just standing there with nothing to do, and it's like they're like, "This is where we'll have a scene where something funny happens. We'll just write that later." And then they never wrote it later. They just put them there, and they're just staring at the camera like, hey, what? Like that tango scene, the dance scene. Fred Willard doesn't do anything. He's doing like a funny voice, and they've got a hairdo on him, and they're like, that's the joke.
Exactly. So I'm just making this real life. Of course, Hallie knows that I am doing this podcast, and she sent me a request for an app to download. And so she knows I'm in here doing this. And so I'm approving it. And then she texted me to ask, can you accept? So I'm doing it right now because she will.
I'm not ready for teenagers. I'm not ready for teenagers.
Well, she did say thanks. So
that's nice.
That's so yeah, I agree with you. It's kind of like McConaughey is kind of trying to find himself, like, because he's naturally charismatic. It's almost like he didn't have something to go towards like he would in a drama role. So, but he felt like maybe he had to be different. So, yeah. And I couldn't stop laughing at his haircut and the glasses.
So I wanted to go back and try to track like when he lost the glasses, because sometimes he doesn't have them on, and I wanted to see when they like took them off, if it was scenes where she's supposed to be more attracted to him or something, if they even thought to use that in a different way. But God help me, I wasn't gonna go back and watch this thing again. Same with having her and her hair up in a ponytail. I suspect that her hair was down when she is falling for him, and it's up when she's guarded, but I'm not watching this thing again, so it's anybody's guess.
Well, if you have glasses, it automatically makes you smart, or you're a doctor or a lawyer.
And he's a pediatrician, right?
He's a pediatrician. Yes, and if you're a female in one of these, like, you're automatically lovable because you like old people. You work with old people, So.
Yeah, she plays Scrabble. She's very relatable. She plays Scrabble. She goes home and pours a glass of wine and watches Antiques Roadshow. I don't think this woman has it figured out. That sounds like my ideal life right there. Like, she's doing okay.
Except for one thing, and it really bothered me. It shows her going home, and she keeps her blue jeans on. Like, who just like lounges around in the house in their blue jeans? Like, you're definitely putting the sweats on, right?
Yeah, well, she's too buttoned up. She's too buttoned up for that, Nate. I mean, she's not even going to take her hair out of that ponytail. This is a hardworking, career-minded woman that just needs a little near-death experience and a brush with a groom that wants to commit infidelity. That's okay. I was thinking about that. Like, he has to. You have to thread a needle with this, right? Because the premise of the movie is this guy you're like supposed to root on him to cheat on his fiance with the wedding planner named Mary, by the way. Does everybody get it? She's a wedding planner named Mary. It's very clever. But since there's no chemistry between them, you're just like, and they don't want to play the card of making Bridget Wilson, Sampras's character, like a bad person. So he just comes off as a guy that's going to cheat on his perfectly nice fiance with this woman he has no chemistry with whatsoever. So he kind of is a creep.
Yes, he is. Speaking of her name, did you happen to look at like what his last name is?
Yeah, it's Steve Edison, right?
Edison. Yeah,
Eddie.
But like, yeah, Edison. Like, okay, we get it. He's supposed to be smart, like
he's a direct descendant.
This meet cute moment, like, it's just utterly ridiculous.
I mean, they kind of brush past the fact that she is willingly going to get hit by this dumpster because she gets out of the shoe that she gets stuck in the manhole cover and comes back for the shoe. Like, I mean, I just let it hit her. I mean, at this point, oh God. And this poor cab driver, who's the same cab driver at the end. It's about this man just terrorizing these people.
Well, yeah, I would assume too, if let's say you leave the shoe in the manhole, the dumpster doesn't, like, there's a chance that it just like glazes over it, right? Like the shoe would still technically probably be okay.
I think she'd be all right. That it was the most manufactured of manufactured moments. Like, Yeah, and then he admits her into the pediatrics wing of the hospital. I don't know. If I'm looking for realism, I don't think I've come to the right movie. But I was surprised that like that was the impetus for him saving her, was this thing that didn't really seem like an issue to start with. But this movie won't really commit to anything. It's like half ideas.
Yes. Yeah. No, and I'm going to go back a little bit. Are you familiar with the director of this movie, Adam Shankman, at all?
I am. I'm very familiar with him. He has directed some movies that I really enjoy, like Hairspray, and he's also a bit of a cinematic terrorist with some of the other films that he's directed. Like Bringing Down the House and The Pacifier and things like that.
Right. Yeah.
But he also did Hocus Pocus too.
Right. Yeah. Are you a fan of Hairspray, the movie?
Yeah, I love the Hairspray movie. I think it's really good.
I'm personally a good fan. How I came to know Adam Shankman is there was a little time in our period, like when Whitney and I first met, that we watched So You Think You Can Dance. I think it's still on, but anyway, he was a guest judge for a really long time on that show, and so it was one of those where then I found out he was a director, and I was like, "What?" But yeah, more familiar with the Hairspray, and then you kind of see some of the other titles.
I thought he'd had a better filmography than when I looked him up, and I'm like, oh, I should be more concerned when I see Adam Shankman in front of a film than excited for it.
Yeah, I love he's done a lot of TV work. He's directed a lot of episodes like on Modern Family and like some kind of legitimately good shows, So yeah, it's just kind of maybe just a little kind of hit and miss type of thing. But I think he was channeling his inner Martin Scorsese at the beginning of this film. Did you happen to notice this long take shot that was happening?
Is that at the first wedding?
Oh, right at the very beginning, opening credits. It took me a little while to catch on that, we haven't broken. We're just following her throughout this this wedding.
When you first see her, that's true. I don't think I noticed that it was a oneer. No, I didn't notice that.
Yeah, you know why? Because it was absolutely boring. There's nothing funny that happened during that whole time.
No, she's got a fanny pack that has little things in it. Isn't that
right?
That's almost a joke. And Judy Greer yells at someone. There's something there.
Yeah, it made me laugh where it's supposed to be funny. It's not, but when she's, kind of walking, but then she runs when she's behind a big, pillar, in the church or whatever. And I just laugh because the church I grew up in, First Baptist Longview, very kind of old traditional church. So it had big, columns like that. And as a kid, we would do that sort of thing, run and walk and then run and then walk. But yeah. But I was surprised by a lot of the people that did appear in this film. You mentioned, sorry, I lost his name for a second, but Willard. Yeah, Fred Willard.
Fred Willard. Mm-hmm.
Great, Fred Willard. Always a fan of Judy Greer. I'm sure we'll talk about her a little bit more. But I immediately was like, it's Veronica Vaughn from Billy Madison.
I know.
Yeah.
That Veronica Vaughn.
So hot. I think she's fine in this movie. She's not given a whole lot to do, but no. I kind of looked at her IMDb. I was a little surprised she hadn't done more stuff. I've always liked her, but
yeah, I don't think she did a lot, right? Especially once her and Pete Sampras got married. I don't think there was a lot after that. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that wouldn't make sense. I would
if she's busy at the Open, the French Open, the Australian Open.
Yeah. No. Yeah. That's kind of like when you watch a golf tournament, and you see the wives and stuff like that, and you're like, yep, this is their job. It's just coming and clapping at the very end, So yeah.
A concept of a movie like this could get behind.
Yes, very much. And speaking of, a lot of these movies haven't necessarily aged well, but this one has a little rough some rough moments in it where I was like, "Ee," like, like, and I know it's easy to look back on things. Certainly, if it's been, this was made in 2001, but at one point they make a joke about, "Oh, that's the gay. He's the gayest." The R word is thrown out there.
The R word is there.
Yeah.
How about Jennifer Lopez, Jenny from the Block, playing Mary Fiore, first generation Italian?
Right.
It's like they held up a paint swatch and they're like, close enough. We're not gonna make her Hispanic, that's for damn sure. This is 2001. I'm like, this is offensive, right? Like, once we cast J-Lo, can we just switch it up to her family is maybe her heritage instead of she's Italian, whatever.
Yeah. Well,
something weird. Who cares?
Yeah, and I don't know exactly Justin Chambers' lineage as well, but his performance as Massimo, this childhood friend. I mean, yeah, I kind of talked about most of the performances being okay, but I mean, this was pretty bad.
The word broad comes to mind. Yeah,
yeah.
It's a lot. He's this does not feel like a major motion picture release. I mean, everybody's broad, right? Like her parents are playing. They're just playing everything to the back of the room. Everything, and you can just tell that they're on set, being like, no, this will be funny. Like, we're having a good time. It's funny in the room. This is really gonna play, and it doesn't. It just comes over so forced.
Yeah. And I mean, to see that, like, he pops up and I'm like, oh, he's so I've never really watched Grey's Anatomy. That's a Whitney show, but I've seen kind of a lot. But I was like, that's Dr. I forget his main character. And then he starts talking. I'm like, wow, they still like hired him after seeing this performance.
They nailed it. He beat someone out. He beat a lot of people out for that role.
Yeah. So, like, I mean, I guess they saw a diamond in the rough, I think. In this performance,
whatever they saw, I did not.
Yeah. Do you like the concept of her dad basically pitching the romanticism of arranged marriages to her?
Yeah, finally a movie that really comes up for the arranged marriage. So often are we told that that's a bad thing, but it's good to see it really have its place in cinema. Her dad's character, I mean, again, stock character, but played by Alex Rocco, who was in The Godfather,
right?
Doing what, I mean, he is an Italian American. I've been to Italy. I found his Italian accent baffling, to say the least. I was like looking at are they supposed to be Italian? Is there some sort of brain injury here that hasn't been addressed? Yeah, him and his little cronies pushing that it doesn't have to be love. You'll learn to love each other. And then she kind of believes that. I was like, first of all, I knew exactly where we were going with this, but I'm like, is this where we're going with this? But I also felt like she needed to come to that sooner. Like, when she announces that she's engaged to Massimo at about the 40-minute mark of the movie, she should actually be engaged to him at that point. And then it's like them both being engaged, going through this together, and maybe her actually falling for him a little bit. I don't know. I just felt like, again, this is one of those things where it like wants to just hit these beats that it doesn't really earn. Mm-hmm. And so they didn't really spend the time with that they kind of needed to. I hate to rewrite the movie, but kind of this movie forces you to rewrite it.
It does. Yeah, you're definitely in the moment, kind of going like, wait, why is this happening? And why is it? Yeah. So I have to touch on this. And I figured you would have an opinion on this. And apparently it's like a thing. Once again, I didn't see this movie when it came out. And when I started doing some internet rabbit hole searches, this is discussed quite a bit. But the only eating the brown M&Ms is insane. Wouldn't you agree?
Act of a madman. Act of complete insanity. I'd never heard of that either. And I texted Brandon, my co-host, when I was watching this. I was like, this is awful. And he goes, yeah, brown M&Ms, huh?
What are you doing?
I only eat the brown ones.
Because?
Well, because I figure they have less artificial coloring. Because chocolate's already brown.
It's very scientific of you, Dr. Steve.
Yes, thank you, Mary.
Makes no sense. It's like, we need something cute. I don't know, brown M&Ms. Yeah, I'm just saying, like, you're littering. First of all, you're just littering.
Right. Yeah.
So you buy this pack of M&Ms, you get what, 5 M&Ms that you get to eat? I don't know.
Right.
But this is their cute thing that she like is mentioned once, and then at the end she's doing it as a callback. He's like, oh, she loves me.
I know. They felt so strongly about this that, like you said, they call it back at the end. Like,
they're like, this is our hook. This is our hook that shows their true love. This M&M thing. Yeah, it's like what demented rock stars do in their writer.
And so, I mean, once again, it's kind of hard with the internet, is like finding out was true or not. But
Yep.
I read that the fact that he states is likely the opposites. Since the shell over the M&M is sugar and food coloring, not chocolate, it's likely that the lighter colored M&Ms have the least artificial coloring because it takes less food coloring to make lighter colors. While on the other hand, it takes many colorful food coloring to mix a darker chocolate brown color. Considering he is a children's doctor, it seems like a strange oversight.
Well, so I was thinking that too, and I'm glad you looked that up, because my thought as he said that was, wait, the outer shells aren't chocolate, they're candy. Because the whole point of the M&M is wouldn't they create them for the servicemen back during World War II so they could carry them around and they wouldn't melt in their pocket, so they have the candy shell protecting the chocolate. So I'm sitting there like, that doesn't make a lot of sense. He's not a good doctor. His first name is Doctor. He's not a real doctor.
Oh my gosh. So I definitely had to talk about that. Did you think this like park motifs scene worked in this movie?
Boy, in a word, no. So I read that they kind of filmed this all around this park. Like, this whole movie has like 4 sets. It was filmed for like $3. So I thought that it seemed like it was something they felt a romantic comedy should do. It was like a hallmark of a romantic comedy. Like, we need to be like Sleepless in Seattle and harken back to these older movies, these older classic Hollywood movies. So they were like, we'll go to this movie and we'll have it playing in the background, except they don't really make anything out of that. And then you've got this carnival. It's like Picnic or something like that, but they don't really do anything with the carnival. So it all just feels like they're just kind of standing in the woods. I think there was supposed to be more to it. I watched the trailer last night against my better judgment. I thought, if I'm not going to rewatch this turd, I'll at least rewatch the trailer and maybe I'll get something out of that. And in the trailer, there's like clips of things that obviously didn't make it in the movie. And there's like a choreographed dance in that part. Now, I don't know if I fell asleep on the plane and I missed the choreographed dance number, but I get the feeling that this movie was really chopped up in the editing room. It just has that feeling because nothing really flows. And so maybe they were going for something. And the choreography makes sense if you get a choreographer to direct this. This is his first big directorial movie, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then they cut that out. So whatever they had planned for that set piece was not executed and like did not show up in the movie.
Yeah. And they keep going back to the dance like motif quite a bit of like that being what really has like drawn them together. But yeah, is there? So I always have a little category for like a favorite scene or quote, and I can totally let you off the hook if that is not the case for you. Was there anything that you kind of grasped onto?
The credits count. You know what? I'll tell you what. So there's the scene where Dr. Eddie, goes and is playing golf with someone he knows, Kevin Pollak. I was like, sweet. Kevin Pollak is going to be like the guy best friend in this. He's going to be the person he goes to for sage advice. And they're playing golf, which I love. I'm like, I could get into this. It's still worth 10 minutes to 15 minutes in the movie. It's unlimited potential. Then the movie forgot that Kevin Pollak was in it, and he never shows up again.
Never again.
So
you know
the
what?
unfulfilled promise of the golf scene. Was he walking by the set, and they were like, "Kevin, come here."
You know what happened? is his character, although being a doctor, is smoking a cigarette, and he probably just had a heart attack at some point and
He
died.
died.
Yeah.
He died. Okay, they address that's in the director's cut. There's
Yeah.
a good 30 minutes devoted to the funeral and everything. I get it. Hey, doctors smoked too. Man, it was 2001. We didn't know these crazy things.
Right. Oh, so this was like more of a movie. I was writing down scenes that I just thought were horrible. We don't have to talk a whole lot about them, but
We can.
the whole I just labeled it as the horse scene. I mean, I know maybe Mary is not their like favorite person ever, but just the lack of just even wondering if she was okay after being saved, I just thought was very, very cruel on this family's from this family standpoint.
Well, while I don't have an issue with the daughter that's getting married, whatever her name is, Fran, her parents are complete psychotics and sociopaths and like are it from a different movie. So you're right. They don't even know who this woman is. First, well, also, do you remember the name of your wedding planner, Nathan?
Okay. So
I didn't go horseback riding with mine. I know that.
You didn't?
Well, no. Well, it was donkeys. It was a trail ride. So
you didn't have to chase her down. And also, I also want to note that, like, okay, I can maybe see how they did not, pay attention to Mary being okay, but none of them were like, Steve is quite a good horse rider. He's like
the equestrian we've got.
Does he race on the weekends? But yeah. Oh man.
He's from Texas. He's got the Texas draw. We all ride horses.
That's right. Yeah. Man, I forgot to feed mine today. I better go do that. What's your horse's name?
I say that I actually had horses growing up.
That's true. You did. Oh man. Yeah. If anybody knows me, they know how horses are like, I'm kind of scared of horses, actually.
You should be. They're big. They're pretty, but they're big and stupid, and they can really hurt you.
It really can. So I dated a girl in high school who had horses, and so I rode a horse a couple of times, but just even when
have to brag.
I actually went bareback on a horse one time.
Wow.
Believe it or not. Yeah. Once again, we're not really doing much for our case here. So yeah, I guess I knew I dated another girl who they sold horses to a famous country star. So yeah,
that's right. All the stereotypes are true, folks. All the stereotypes are true. Bang, bang. Yeah.
But I just the first time, and they had the horses she had were some of the gentlest, nicest horses ever. And just how she was telling me how, when you go in the backside to always have your hand, just along their rear, just so they don't come back and kick you and essentially kill you. And so even though I would do that every time, I was just almost in my head, okay, this is it. This is when
I've never
happen.
heard of that before. I think she was just a pervert.
Oh gosh. Well, I won't go into, the other things that
other tips and tricks.
Yeah. Oh gosh. And the other scene you have to know is the whole statue.
Wow, they really thought they had a set piece there, didn't they? Yeah, where he manhandles the statue, and
which would if it was a real statue, would crush them.
Yeah, no, they'd be dead. We could all stop watching it. Yeah, I think I was wondering during that scene, were they going for we want to be a little raunchy? We've got to we got to break out of this. First of all, we've got our one F word, which we use pretty early in the movie.
When
Judy
was that?
Greer yells it at someone at a wedding guest. And then we have this whole thing around the statue's genitals, which is supposed to be very funny. So I think they were trying to up the romp, something for the older kids, to really get them into this.
Yeah. And he has to hold on, for lack of better terms, that dick for a really long time.
Yeah, he hold that dick.
Oh yeah, it got glued to his hand.
It did got glued to his hand, and then she had it unglued somehow with her little fanny pack that she carries around. Yeah, I mean, again, that's where it's like insert joke later. This will just be funny. Well, just trust us. This will be funny.
Right.
And it just doesn't work for me.
Right.
But he's also not super committed to the bit. You know,
Yeah.
he's kind of like half joking, and McConaughey, I think he can't decide if he wants to be in a movie like this yet.
Right. Yeah. And the security guard, I mean, horrible at his job. I mean, I know he ends up confronting them, but it's totally kind of understandable about the whole thing.
There's it happens all the time. It just happens. People are always out there fondling the statues.
Movie musings.
We touched a little bit on the brown M&Ms.
Sure.
I want to go away from that, and he does bring some treats. I did want to ask you, and then I'll tell you the thing that really kind of bugged me. But what is your go-to movie snack when you go to the movies?
Yeah, I'm a popcorn guy all the way.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
I love it. I'm popcorn with the gross butter on the top, you know, and dig from the bottom. I don't need that popcorn on the top that's 3 hours old. I want the popcorn on the bottom that's good 12 hours old. Give me that good stale stuff, and I'll throw some of that yellow motor oil on it, and I will finish the biggest bucket before we're done with the trailers and have a stomachache the rest of the movie. Absolutely.
Do you pair it with any kind of candy at all?
No, usually like a Miller Lite.
Nice.
I'm not big candy. I'm not a big candy guy. I'm a big, you know, I don't go out to the movies as much anymore, but I'm, you know, pretzels and popcorn. I think I like the salty stuff a little bit more.
Yeah, I do as well. I found though, like, and I don't even keep these on hand, but I love to have hot tamales with the popcorn. It's actually a surprisingly good mixture there.
Yeah, that's my wife had never had popcorn and M&Ms before, so I did introduce her to that, and she was
that's a good combo.
Eternally grateful. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, so there's in Norman, there's really kind of two main theaters to go to, and one I actually like a lot, but the problem is they have all Pepsi products. So that really sucks. And the other one, they do have Coke products, but it's out of the fountain machine. That's the one like kids' dream, a fountain machine where you get to press the screen, and like those sodas are never good because it's got a mixture of who knows what, you know, when it comes out. And so anyway, it's always like we end up bringing we wouldn't mind paying for the soft drink if it was like a true like, you know, good soft drink, but we usually end up taking a Diet Coke in there or something like that. So
yeah, movie theaters seem to be the only place that you can still get Mr. Pibb. So I'm always drinking a Mr. Pibb with my stale popcorn.
I haven't had Mr. Pibb in a really long time.
Well, if he tried harder, he'd be Dr. Pibb.
So what really bugged me was that Steve brought gumballs. Like, to me, that just was like, I thought that's a horrible movie candy.
Yeah, no, not a good choice. He doesn't make very many good choices in this, though.
No.
He's not a dentist. He's a pediatrician.
That's true. Maybe because he works with kids, he just immediately thinks everybody likes gumballs, I guess.
He just had them in his pockets.
So you mentioned that Mary, she's really into Scrabble because she, you know, goes and visits her dad and all his friends. And so you kind of, are you a Scrabble guy?
I am. I love Scrabble.
I kind of figured you did for some reson. I don't know why I had.
Yeah, I give off big Scrabble energy.
Yeah.
You look lonely, Kyle.
Have you been playing a lot at the old folks' home? I
do, but that's just to me women.
Yeah. So you like Scrabble? You think you're pretty good?
I'm pretty good. It's ironic because I'm a terrible speller. But I do love Scrabble. I've got you know, my vocabulary isn't terrible, but my spelling definitely doesn't match it. But it's just a game of strategy, right?
Right. And I was about to say you're very good at strategic games, so I can definitely see how you would have like a 3-letter word, but just being like placed in the right, you know, triple word score, that sort of thing.
Well, and I'm a big crossword guy. I mean, I don't play Scrabble a lot because you need a partner to play Scrabble, but I do crosswords all the time. So I like word games.
Okay. Yeah. So in this movie, Mary gets described quite a bit as a control freak. Would you consider yourself a control freak?
I'm married, so not really, and I have children, so I don't control really anything in my life. Um, I'm a control freak around two things. I have to drive everywhere. I
Yes.
like to be in control of the vehicle, and I do all of our cooking for our family, and I like to be the one that sets the meals and cooks the meals and kind of determines when meals are served.
Okay.
So yeah, I am controlling over those things.
Yeah.
And I only let Brandon speak on our podcast at certain times.
So I didn't have this question originally written down, but it just came to, and you mentioned it. So you all did have a wedding planner for your wedding?
No, I say that more for humor. I mean,
Oh,
so
okay.
we had a wedding. Our ceremony was actually in a church. I wasn't someone that grew up like planning my wedding in any way, but I always imagined a church wedding, I think, because that's what most people on TV did. So we were assigned some little old biddy from the church, and you were in my wedding.
Yeah.
Some little old biddy from the church that was a control freak and who we did not get along with. And I think my brother got into it with her, doing his best man duties. So no, we didn't go horseback riding with Ethel, and we didn't spend a lot. I know she didn't make the Christmas card list, I'll tell you that. Did you have one?
Oh, we didn't. No. But Whitney, she just naturally, just in her professional world, has always done events, so she's really good at that thing. But the one thing that we like really spent a lot of money on was our photographers, because we wanted to get photos. But we knew the couple that did the photos, and part of the reason we hired them is kind of they weren't the wedding planner, but they kind of moved everything along. Because they're very professional and did a lot of things. So, it's like they were the ones who kind of were like, okay, now it's time to cut the cake. Like they had their checklist of things. So that kind of like helped move things along. But we had a good friend who kind of stood in that place who we knew enjoyed telling other people what to do. And so she helped out a lot. So no, we didn't. So yeah.
I have to say that my wife wanted to be a wedding and event planner. That's what she initially set out to do. So we really weren't in need of one. I mean, she was ready to go.
Yeah. And that's like, Whitney didn't ever want to do that, but she was already at that point working for the city of Arlington, and they did events all the time. So I think if we had hired somebody, she would have done a better job than whoever we would have hired. So
I don't doubt that.
Rom-Com Rankings.
The first category is the romantic chemistry between the leads. So 1 heart being the lowest, 5 hearts being the highest. What did you give Steve and Mary here?
Boy, so 1's the lowest, huh?
Yeah.
1's, that seems rough, because when they went to kiss each other, they didn't like miss each other's faces or anything. So I get 1.5. Just because they were able to speak the same language. Yeah.
I mean, they're both very attractive people.
They are, and that is what's most important.
Yeah, I'm going to line with you on that 1.5. I didn't feel like, I mean, they, cardboard type of people are drawn to each other. Like I'm sure some couples in this world that are both just naturally boring, and it's like, well, yeah, that makes sense that they're together. So that kind of makes sense here. But as far as like the chemistry that pops from the screen, and it's almost like surprising when you see it, because I like McConaughey and Lopez, and like in other things, it just didn't match here, and it totally seemed like this was like a bunch of producers. And I read some kind of other like this person was supposed to be cast, and this it kind of it did feel like these two actors, like their schedules aligned more than anything.
Yeah, I mean, look at like Lopez and George Clooney in Out of Sight. I mean, that's chemistry, right? That's two people firing off of each other. This is not that.
No, not at all.
McConaughey and Anthony Hopkins and Amistad. Like two people that just
Matthew McConaughey and Samuel L. Jackson, turning and
perfect example.
So the second category, I actually kind of had a hard time with this. I almost, like in my head, I've always called this category almost like the Judy Greer Memorial category, just because I like her in anything that she does. And so, but I really struggle with it. One, because you mentioned Steve's old friend who just plays golf and then he's out. So, Steve doesn't really have that like person on his shoulder that's really kind of guiding him, so to speak. And so Judy Greer is like, she kind of gets Steve and Mary together, and she's kind of in and out a little bit. I don't know how you view this category. I mean, it could also be her dad and her friends. I struggle with that because we talked about the arranged marriage part, and they go all the way to the courthouse, but then they actually kind of come in and save the day, like don't allow them to get married. I kind of like that aspect of it. So I don't know how you feel about this category.
Yeah, you've got the quirky sidekick, right? That always is there to bounce zingers off the lead, and I do love Judy Greer.
Yeah.
And I think you're correct in naming this like the Judy Greer Memorial category. But Judy Greer is not that character. It's like she's a plot device to get them together, and every now and then they have her scream. So right. I don't think she's a strong character. The dad, his friends don't do enough, I think, to even rank at that. Maybe the dad a little bit. A lot of times you have the parental figure that kind of guides her, and so if we're giving a rating, just because it's Judy Greer, I'm going to give it a bump up, and I'm going to give it a 2. Okay. But they don't give Judy anything to do.
Yeah, I agree. I gave it 2.5, not because at points I liked him as much as I hated Massimo. He actually like says a lot of good things to her.
He's not like supposed to be a bad guy, right? He's the one that actually calls off the wedding at the end. It's kind of half said, which when I had to reread Wikipedia to remember what happened in this movie earlier today, because I watched it 2 days ago and it is gone from my memory. And it has it both ways. It says that she realizes that marrying Massimo is not the right thing to do, and leaves him. And then the next sentence it says that Massimo reveals he could not go ahead with marrying Mary, and because she loves Steve. I'm like, much like the movie, this description has no idea what the hell's going on.
Yeah, that sounds about right. So today, sorry, it was kind of last minute. I sent you a link to a playlist that I found about the soundtrack. Did you get a chance to listen to any of those songs?
I did. On my drive home today, I decided that I was going to forego my usual listening and listen to what you sent me. And I listened to a good 10 seconds of each one of those trinkly, horrible, sappy songs. Just what a soundtrack. What a soundtrack. The Love Don't Cost a Thing, that J-Lo song that plays over the end credits, isn't even on the soundtrack.
Oh, yeah. That's right. I forgot about that.
The best song in the movie.
So Hallie watched this movie with us, and the credits hit, and me and Whitney immediately start singing and dancing along to that song. And Hallie looked at us like, "How in the world do you know this song?" I forgot about that one.
But you can't call it a count on the soundtrack. I mean, you got to buy the J-Lo album to get that one.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess so. As even without like listening to this playlist, I was trying to pay attention to the music, watching through it. It was a lot that's on here are just it's so 2001 female pop, kind of like a Vanessa Carlton type of sound. A lot.
You got a Sister Hazel B-side on there.
Yeah.
They couldn't afford the one Sister Hazel hit. They had to get a B-side.
And then before we talk about this one song, like I did notice throughout the musical quote unquote score, Whitney did make note that like during the park scene, like when it slowed down and that had like the swelling romantic music, it was pretty, but like the music that's used here for the comedic beats of any like weird glance or like action is horrific. Like
it's like Looney Tunes type.
Yes.
It makes me think of Forgetting Sarah Marshall and like the Peter Breder character, right? Where he does like the music for the show that she's on, whatever it's called. Is it Sarah Marshall? Is that her name? whenever remember, and he's just like low, ominous tones.
Yes, yeah,
Whenever
yeah.
I see a movie like that, I just imagine him with his synthesizer, like happy
Yes.
sound, sad sound, stock emotional swelling, or like
Mhm.
boom, 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 plucking the violin strings as someone's sneaking along. It's just like music, the score.
Yeah. And so the song I want to talk about was, so Mary makes note in this movie about the Olivia Newton-John song, and if any couple has a song in their wedding, she
Yes.
knows they're not going to make it. I'll be completely honest. I don't know. Were you familiar with this?
What the hell is this song?
No, I don't know it. And I listened to it today, and I have to agree with Mary here. That's a horrible song.
Well, here's my thing.
Just the fact that the song is "I love you, comma I honestly love you."
I swear, trust me, it's true. I didn't make it to the chorus. I'll be honest, but no, I'd never heard it, and I'm thinking, okay, it's a snapshot in time. You watch Friends. Some of the references they make are from things that happened in the 70s when the writers of that were growing up, that maybe go over my head. And I'm like, maybe that's when I'm like, wait, no, it's 2001 that this came out. Like, what Olivia Newton-John song is this? Granted, I don't celebrate the woman's entire catalog, but I don't know what they're talking about. Pick a movie or a song we've heard of. But if two people fall in love and they both decide that this should be their song, they both find this together, those people are going to be married forever. Like,
I think you'll appreciate this story. So I filmed a lot of weddings, especially in college, a little after college. So you always see weddings. It is fascinating. It's like they all kind of have the same beats, but they're all like unique in their own way.
Yep.
Maybe kind of like this rom-com list a little bit. But anyway, one wedding that I filmed, I believe it was outside of Austin, but it was a very country wedding. And the couple's first dance song was Picture by Sheryl Crow and Kid Rock. And I don't know if you remember that song, but
it's a breakup song, isn't it?
Yeah, it's all about like basically somebody cheating on their partner.
I love people that don't listen to the lyrics.
Yeah.
What was your first song? Y'all did like a dance, right? Like a fun dance thing.
Yeah, we were that couple.
Okay.
Yeah, it started off as a song, and then it came in.
I remember that.
Yeah. What's kind of funny about that moment, it was actually probably one of the biggest fights that we had as an engaged couple, because I know this surprises you. I'm not the most coordinated fella in the whole world. And yeah, I know. But we had our friend, I put the song together, and it's kind of a medley of a lot of different songs. And she choreographed it for us. And we were in Whitney's rec center that she was running in at the time, and we were like practicing, but it was just one of those moments that like I just wasn't getting it down or whatever. And it was one of those moments of like, I can't do this. And that was one of our big moments.
Our biggest fight was while we were engaged. I stopped an armed robbery, and this woman that was being robbed, there was a real connection between the two of us, and we almost fell in love. It was this old woman. It turns out she was our wedding planner.
Oh, well, I'm proud of Kayla for sticking it through with you and just.
Yeah, it's a sham.
So we didn't rate the overall. I honestly, I had it pretty low, but you remind me of the Jennifer Lopez the song at the very end. So I have to give it 2 hearts, because I kind of like the Sister Hazel song. I know it was a B-side, but I was kind of like one of those like, oh yeah, I like Sister Hazel. But
yeah, I'm gonna give this a 1.5. This is, I mean, to me, this is your basic 90s 2000s soundtrack where they're just, the studio's like, what do we own? What songs do we own that we can throw on this soundtrack? What's not going to cost us anything?
Right. Yep. Okay, so the fourth category, the chase scene, declaration of love. And I'll be honest, kind of like you, even though I saw this not that long ago, I really had to refresh my mind about, because I knew she didn't get married. He ended up, not getting married. They have that kind of weird discussion that should have happened long before the actual wedding date. But he goes up to the church, and he's relieved that she didn't get married to Massimo, and so McConaughey does a good job of playing like I've got to get to the girl, like
Sure.
look and faces and stuff like that. And so he takes the car, and then it's like nighttime all of a sudden, and he goes to the park, right? Did I miss anything there?
You do a little, yeah. They've read the book. They've read the book on rom-coms, right? When the screenwriters went to their laboratory, and they were Frankensteining this together. They knew that you have to have a quirky best friend, and they knew that you have to have a soundtrack with some old hits in it, and you knew you've got to have a little raunchy stuff in it, and they knew that you have to have this declaration of love and this chase, this running, like Billy Crystal running for no reason at the end of When Harry Met Sally, just because we need something for the trailer where he's running. And so they start this scene where Massimo and McConaughey jump on Massimo's Vespa, and they ride through the streets of San Francisco, and they go through a parade, and McConaughey's wearing a veil. So we've got some good early 90s gay panic, which they've inserted into this, but it's like, it's too fast and nothing ever happens from it. They go in the parade. I'm like, oh, they're going to ride in the parade and there's going to be some hijinks, and they're suddenly out of the parade. And then so they want to have that scene, and they started to write that scene, and then it never really goes anywhere. And they're like, he's back in the park. Let's just get in. Let's put him in that cab for the guy earlier that was eating the ice cream cone. I don't know. People enjoy that.
And I understand that he's wanting to get to Mary as fast as possible, but the fact that it's not like she's even like boarding a plane or anything. She's just in the park.
She seems to have probably should be there a couple hours. The movie just started.
Right.
They had to. It was just evening, and suddenly it's dusk or full on nighttime. So they had to wait for nighttime for the movie to start. So it's gonna be a while.
Yeah. Oh my god. So okay. So all that said, how do you rank it?
So they tried. It exists, right?
Yes.
It's a 1 to me would be like, we can't find it in this movie.
Yeah.
They tried. They got some extras and made a parade. They rented a Vespa. So I'm gonna give it a 2.
Yeah. That's what I gave it, because like I mentioned, somehow I still kind of forgot all the things you had mentioned. Even though I watched it, and it's like, oh yeah, I forgot about the parade.
A movie that dares you to remember it.
So the most, I would say, the most important category, the last one, the rewatchability. What do you give it in this movie?
I couldn't bring myself to rewatch scenes of it to prepare for your podcast. 1, -5. I mean,
yeah, I agree. So I have no need to see this movie ever again.
If I never watch this movie again, it will be a complete life.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm sure there might have been a moment or two I might have kind of chuckled or something, but I just, I always say it's almost like a rewatchable movie is kind of like when you go to the hotel and do you all have cable? No. Yeah. So we don't either. So there's something about when you go to a hotel and there's cable. I don't know why. Like, it's just like, oh, like this is like this new invention or something, but like, oh, I can flip. It's just something. But like I always say, rewatchability is like, you're flipping through and it's a movie, and no matter where it's at, you kind of like stop and watch it,
Right.
And this is like, I would not be enticed to ever take this movie in again.
I might watch a few minutes of it, not remembering that I've seen it. But as soon as that flood of memories comes back, I'm changing the channel.
Yeah, you might forget, because it does have such a great cast. You'd be like, oh, Judy Greer. Oh yeah, it's The Wedding Planner. Or oh, Kevin Pollak. Oh no,
The Wedding Planner. Kevin Pollak and Matthew McConaughey together. Where is this going?
I know you can keep that one in your memory bank for all the movie games we like to play. If those two ever come up, you'll be like, I knew I watched this movie for a reason.
That's right. I'll use it as ammo to beat you.
Yeah, you always beat me. I don't think I've beat you once. Maybe
you
once.
You win sometimes.
Sometimes.
Recommendations.
We probably talked about this movie way too long, maybe longer than the movie itself. But
we gave it more thought than the screenwriters, that's for sure.
But anything good that you're watching or reading or listening to?
Yeah, I don't watch much. The thing is, our podcast second best picture, all my movie watching time seems to go towards
Yeah.
watching those movies.
And
I
those
know
movies tend to be usually longer run times too.
Yeah, they don't make hour and 15-minute long Best Picture nominees for some reason. Something I bemoan constantly on the podcast because I'm 85 years old. So I'll instead of pointing people towards one of our podcasts, I'll point them towards another podcast that I'm really enjoying right now, which is called it was the spooky season recently, right, with Halloween. And so I listened to a podcast out of Wondery called Ghost Story.
Okay.
This journalist in England trying to get found out that people reported a ghost in his childhood home in London. And so he has a podcast trying to get to the bottom of this supposed ghost that was in his childhood home, that his wife, this isn't a spoiler or anything, his wife, it turns out her great grandmother was murdered in the house next door to his, that they didn't realize until they met like in college, that her great grandmother had lived next door to the house he grew up in and was murdered in that house. And so it is a fascinating podcast called Ghost Story that I'm not someone that even believes in ghosts, but just the family dynamics of it all is really really interesting. So I'd recommend that.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, that sounds really good. I'm going to change mine up a little bit because you said that. We'll just go on the podcast recommendation, and it kind of actually goes with this movie a little bit. Real quick, I want to say I'm surprised that Ghost Story, that title, had not been taken already.
Well, let me make sure I got the title right, Nate. Ghost Story, nailed it.
Yeah, there you go. So this is I don't tend to listen to a lot of what would that category kind of be like?
It turns into more true crime, I feel like.
Yeah. So this is kind of a true crime podcast, although it's a little bit like on the lighter side, and because we're talking about The Wedding Planner, this is from the Ringer network, but The Wedding Scammer. I've been listening to it, and it's almost like a real time type of podcast. I think there's going to be 7 episodes, so like. After each episode, he's kind of like, this is still kind of developing, but basically the guy who hosts the podcast worked for a business that ended up kind of being a sham. Like none of the employees got paid and that sort of thing. And he knew him and the others kind of got scammed, but he kind of went on with his life. But then this character kind of comes back in, and a lot of what this guy was doing was it's just horrible, like in the wedding industry, and just like totally just gypping people on like the flowers they order or the catering. I mean, it's just like, it's almost like, to me, a little bit like, it's one thing to like, scam somebody, but like the wedding, I mean, how horrible is that? One couple in it actually talked about how they like had like the next year, they kind of recreated the whole wedding, like with their close family and friends, just to like kind of salvage everything that they lost from it. But anyway, it's kind of interesting. So if you kind of like the true crime without maybe not as much murder like this one's kind of interesting, kind of maybe like in a Catch Me If You Can vibe to it. So
okay.
Yeah, The Wedding Planner, The Wedding Scammer, so
synergy.
Yes, there you go. Well, awesome. Well, thanks so much. I promise, like, we're gonna have to find a good movie to talk about.
I thought we were friends. It's starting to feel like, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. Fool me 3 times. What kind of choices am I making with my life? I was on also, I think, the Weird Al one. Weird.
Oh, that's right.
Which was fine. So right now, the best movie we've covered together is the Weird Al spoof biography.
Starring Daniel Radcliffe.
Starring Daniel Radcliffe and Rainn Wilson.
Yeah. Did you you probably haven't, have you been able to catch any of the big movies from this year so far, like Barbie or Oppenheimer or Killers of the Flower Moon?
I haven't seen anything, honestly. I'm kind of waiting for them all to hit streaming. I don't leave my house. I'm a hermit. As someone with a movie podcast, I am woefully underversed in modern movies. You want to talk about something from like 2001 or 1994? I mean, I'm your man.
You say you're a hermit, but you're always like at some kind of swim meet, or like you're always neighborhood parties. You're like in Albuquerque. You travel more than I don't travel anywhere.
Yeah, I'm a hermit and a habitual liar.
There you go. Good combination. All right. Well, thank you so much for doing this.
Oh, thanks for having me, buddy.
So we're both laughing about my conversation with Kyle, but also I still can't get over this green M&M thing.
He didn't believe me.
I didn't.
But it's true.
It's true.
If you just type into Google green M&M, you find out a lot about it. But it says, rumors about the green M&M are about it being an aphrodisiac, began circulating on American university campuses in the 1970s. But the funny thing is this thing says today, the initial rumor is an urban legend.
Okay. Just as of today.
Just as of today. Yeah. Apparently in the 70s, it did work.
Yeah. Oh, well, just to segue real quick, we do love Thanksgiving, not only as a chance to spend more time with friends and family and rest up, but hopefully catch a couple of films. So just some really quick takes. We saw Trolls Band Together in the theater. I enjoyed, it was nice to go with our family. I laughed a couple of times.
Popcorn was good.
Popcorn was good. I was bored a little bit, but
it was better than the second one.
The second one, yeah.
I liked the first one better. This third one was fine. I thought the jokes were funny about the boy band stuff.
Yeah. I just wondered if those went over like our girls' heads.
Well, sure, but that joke wasn't for them. They don't care.
I know, but there was a lot of them.
A lot of them, yeah.
They did land on it a lot, but I would say if you've grown up in the Trolls franchise, you should be pleased with this. If Debbie, our sister-in-law, came with us to this, and
she had never seen any of them. She laughed out loud. Genuinely,
she did. So the other was the documentary about the Wiggles. I'm pulling up I should have the official name. I'm sure it's called.
We loved the Wiggles. Probably too late. Like we watched them more with Hayden than with Hallie, right?
Yes.
And we, it was very soothing in the car, and it like created good music that wasn't. I don't know. I liked it. I liked watching it. I could go watch it right now. I just really enjoyed. I loved Emma and Lucky. I just really liked all of those. And so I realized I love the second generation of Wiggles. I did not know it during the first generation of Wiggles.
Yeah. There was really probably over a decade of Wiggles before
A lot of people, I mean, it was a craze.
Yeah, but they touched on that, how they had to kind of rebuild the brand, with this new band.
Yeah.
And we thought that was interesting because we were like, oh, they're the second.
Look at that. I've seen, and I recognized, one of them stayed the same, but that's the one I recognized. There would be like adults at the concerts, like going, like it wasn't kids at the some of the concerts had kids, but then there'd be concerts that are sold out huge places with just all adults just screaming to the Wiggles songs.
Yeah,
I wanted to go. I'd like to go now.
Yeah, I think if you're interested in just music behind the scene type of stuff, it's definitely, as you can imagine, a lot more cleaner. You're not getting like sex, drugs, and rock and roll here, but it still has some touches of like the band dynamics that always happen, and especially as like it was kind of this person married this person, and I
always wanted Emma and Lucky to be dating, and they were married. Yeah, not for long, but they were married.
One Wiggle that came in and kind of seemed to be ousted, even though there's like, so it's got some elements of that.
But they don't explain everything as well. No. It could have been like a 3-part series and told you way more, but it's just like it lightly touched it. It was very strange. Yeah.
But I think people should check it out. It's called Hot Potato. The story.
Hot potato.
You're cutting me off. Oh. Hot Potato. The story of the Wiggles, and it's
hot potato.
But it's on Prime Video, so you can stream it there.
And try not to sing that song every time you say
it. Even if you didn't grow up listening to them, or watch videos with your kids, I think it's really fascinating of just how a group of people came together to create something just unique. And for honestly, for kid songs, there was something in line between the Wiggles and Barney. Like Barney, drives me nuts. The Wiggles, like, I mean, I was humming
Well,
the
they're
songs.
using real voices as opposed to like cartoon voices the whole time. But also, I think other countries are just pure and more innocent than ours. And they just like let it be, and they don't make it into like slutty or trashy or like gross.
Yeah.
Like turning M&Ms into aphrodisiacs. Welcome to America.
Yeah, exactly. And I think also that, they're never apologetic for their style and their brand. And also you see the musicianship behind their songs, so yeah.
Oh, you could hear it in my singing, right?
Yes, it sounded exactly like them. So the other movie, we caught it on Peacock. I just quickly saw, I'll give a shout out to Matt Munkle. I saw his quick review of it. But Melissa McCarthy has a new movie on Peacock called Genie. And we don't have to talk too much about it. She plays a genie, but it's in presence time, but it's a PG rated film, family film.
Yeah. I genuinely watched it and laughed. I had fun with it.
Yeah. I don't know if I should say surprisingly, but from the writer of Love Actually and Notting Hill, and so I guess you get that. Richard Curtis is his name. So it's got the elements to it. I would say, like, I thought it was really genuinely funny at a lot of parts, and then there's some things that just kind of the wheels came off a little bit, and I thought they had a potential for a really great movie, and for some reason they just settled with good.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, but for sitting, like,
but I liked it for the first, I don't know if it was an hour and a half, but let's say it was an hour and a half. The first hour 20, loved it. The last 10 were like,
yeah.
But it's
good family.
Yeah.
We watched it with Hallie. Christmas, if you want that feeling.
It's a Christmas movie, right?
Yeah. I think you could do a lot worse. And then, the last one, kind of like, I would say an oldie but a goodie for our household. We watched Dan in Real Life the other night, and
that was the best of all four you just said.
Yeah, and I think surprisingly, I feel like we should give it, even though it's not technically about Thanksgiving, it gives a lot of Thanksgiving vibes off.
It is Thanksgiving, isn't it?
Is that why they're getting together?
Yeah, because they come back to see each other at Christmas a few weeks later.
Oh, okay.
It's Thanksgiving.
I guess I didn't remember. Did they have like a Thanksgiving
I made
meal?
that up. I don't know. No. Maybe it's Christmas. Beats me.
But it's family coming together.
Yeah.
I would say one of the rare movies that kind of really captures that dynamic of when family, like cousins, it just all gets together, like the different rooms and the different activities that happen. It makes you think of Your Lackey Side of the Family with the talent show.
Yeah, had a talent show. I love it. Yeah. And I didn't realize, like, my niece is mid-20s, and she hadn't seen it. And so it missed a generation somehow. And she loves to watch movies. So I think you need to go back and watch it if you've never watched it.
Yeah, it's really good. We streamed it on Disney Plus as part of the Fox family, so you can catch Dan in Real Life there.
Yeah, it's great. Steve Carell, great.
I just want to give a special thanks again to Kyle for enduring the wedding planner with me. Make sure to check out his show, Second Best Picture, wherever you listen to podcasts. You can find a link to his podcast in the show notes, so you can easily find that. And remember, you can always visit our website at moviesyourlife.com for all our episodes and reviews for some of the movies that Whitney and I just talked about, and more. Next week, we are sticking with the best rom-coms list and talking about number 40 on the list, 13 going on 30. I would say a much better movie than The Wedding Planner, in my opinion. What says you, Whitney?
Yeah, I agree. I love it.
Yeah.
Hot potato, hot potato, hot potato, hot potato.
Until next time, I'll have Whitney carry you out in song.
Hot potato. I wish I knew the next verse.
There's a elephant, right?
Elephant?
No, that was the monkey.
I don't know.
There was a monkey song.
Yeah, I don't know.
Do the monkey.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Keep it up.
What was it? What was it? How did the elephant go?
I don't know.